Hey guys, Nishquick here, and welcome back to the EXP Podcast. Today, I am here with two very special guests. I have my buddy Shane, who you guys might remember from very old episodes of the EXP Podcast, way back last year, at the end of the year, and I have Dylan from Lunatunes. So, you guys want to introduce yourself? Who wants to go first? Either of you guys can go.
Go for it, Shane. Go for it.
Nice to meet you guys. I'm Shane, of course. I guess real quick, I'm really into, like action adventure games. Love them. Obviously around me, like you can see that I'm a huge nerd for games. So yeah.
PC
Pretty
gamer
excited
as
to be
well.
here. Oh yeah, PC. You have
The
just
ultimate
the
PC
massive
gamer.
RGB. You can see the lights over here. But yeah.
Yeah, and I'm Lunatunes. Obviously, you can find me at Lunatunes_25. I think it is. But yeah, reviews are kind of my bread and butter. But I play all kinds of games: Nintendo Switch, PS5. I try to dip my toes in a little bit of everything. So feel free to check out the channel, Nishquick. Thanks for having us on, man.
Yeah,
thanks.
Definitely. And I knew I had to get these two on this specific episode because ever since the Tears of the Kingdom hype was going and people were comparing it to other games, I was like, we're going to be comparing this game a lot to a game last year, which we all enjoyed, which is Elden Ring. And these two guys are huge FromSoftware fans, huge Elden Ring fans, and I love the game as well. And throughout my experience with Tears of the Kingdom, I've been saying, oh, this was better in this game, this was better in this game, like comparing Elden Ring and Tears of the Kingdom. I thought, let's just compare the games, Elden Ring versus Tears of the Kingdom, and see which one game did better over the other, because Elden Ring last year was like the game of the year, everyone was talking about it. Tears of the Kingdom this year may or may not be game of the year, we'll see, we don't know yet. But yeah, they're very similar, yet very different, so we're gonna split this into three sections: exploration, combat, and story. So let's get into the combat first, because I think we have a lot to talk about that. Shane, you want to start us off? What you love about Elden Ring combat? Because I know there's a lot that you like about it.
And so, since we're like essentially comparing them, right? So off the bat, I think Elden Ring has like the way better combat, right? And we can talk about different aspects, right? Like when it comes to just the builds themselves, like different classes we have, different spells, abilities. Not only that, but just like how do you just like even fight a boss? Do you do it more defensively, aggressive, and all these other different ways to like engage, enemies or bosses or whatever? It's just, I feel like it's so much more creative in so many different ways compared to, Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah.
So like just, or I guess to just start it off as a basic sense, right? Like when I play Elden Ring, right? The thing that keeps me going in that game is straight up just the enemies and the bosses. That is what keeps me going. That's what makes me excited to find that next dungeon. That's what makes me excited to keep going through the game. So.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah, FromSoftware definitely like revolves their games around the combat. Like that is the bread and butter. That's like that's what we play the games for. The story and the lore and the environments and visuals are all there as well, but like the combat is why we keep coming back. But I think Tears of the Kingdom combat almost has like two tiers. Because when you compare like Elden Ring to Tears of the Kingdom, you have the base combat when you just got a sword and board. It's you versus 2 or 3 opponents. We're just swinging and blocking and parrying, right? You can compare Elden Ring and Tears of the Kingdom very easily that way and say Elden Ring by far has better combat. But as soon as you start incorporating the ability to build structures, build weapons, and the more creative you get, the more wild and exciting and adventurous the combat in Tears of the Kingdom actually becomes, to a point where I don't necessarily agree with what I'm about to say, but you could argue that Tears of the Kingdom combat is better than Elden Ring just due to the expansiveness of your own imagination with the different things that you can build. Now, I personally still prefer the Elden Ring combat because it is so precise. You got to be like pinpoint accurate, and when you pull it off, it feels really good. Whereas like the base combat in Tears of the Kingdom, when you're just swinging your sword, feels a little sluggish, feels a little clunky to me. And I'm also not like the super inventive, imaginative person who's going to build like a 3-story tall structure that's going to destroy a bokoblin, you know what I'm saying? But I've seen what people can do with Tears of the Kingdom, building weaponry, tanks, machines, robots. And then you also see, some crazy dudes just like comboing a Lionel to death into oblivion with even just the base combat. So I think it is a little bit more of a difficult comparison than just being able to say, oh, Elden Ring's better because it's more precise and it's more mechanical. Because once you start bringing in like the building mechanics of Tears of the Kingdom, it does get a little more dicey.
Oh, yeah.
And I actually wanted to add to that too as well. Like another, I guess you said there was 2 tiers to that, right? Like something that I actually really liked about Tears of the Kingdom, right, was those. I mean, are we doing spoilers?
Yeah. The game's been out for a while.
So,
I think,
of course,
Dylan, you're okay with that, right?
Yeah, I'm totally fine. Yeah.
Okay. So of course, we get those like 4 like members with you, right? Or I guess I should say 5,
the
right?
sages, yeah.
Yeah, sages. And then the thing is, so what I actually really appreciate about Tears of the Kingdom is I know a lot of people use mainly those sages for puzzles and traversal, but I love to use them for combos in terms of combat. So like, hit them with the wrecking ball, and then also combo that with the electrical like AoE field.
Yeah.
Like I did a lot of that to like maximize efficiency in terms of like keeping my weapons good and stuff. And Here's the Kingdom. There's a lot I want to say about that in terms of the cons though, but like that aspect of it as well was really fun, and I like that.
I did love Fuse a lot. Like Fuse was actually the ability that I was most excited to use before the game even came out, because I was like, this is gonna change combat entirely. But in the back of my head, I was like, oh, it's the same like style of combat, still clunky, still flurry rushes, still charge attacks. And it didn't really hit me until I started playing the game, because I did a video where I was like 5 pros, 5 cons in Tears of the Kingdom. One of my cons was that the combat felt very similar to how it did in Breath of the Wild, and the Breath of the Wild combat felt weird even compared to like something like Twilight Princess. I don't know what you think, Lunatunes, because Twilight Princess, like even the animations and the impact just felt good. It felt like you were really getting across your attacks, and you had the hidden skills to add some variations to things. And that's what Elden Ring had that I missed in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Because Elden Ring had, like, you get that one, like, huge Bloodhound sword, and you can do, like, the quick dash forward and backwards. Yeah. You have the Moonveil Katana, which can do the beams of light or whatever. And you have so many different variations on how you can play. And Breath of the Wild had that with, you have different armor sets, you have different weapons, change out your weapons because they will break, and Tears of the Kingdom expanded on that with Fuse. You're like, your weapons are going to break, but fuse more and experiment more, and the game will be more expansive and more creative. But if there were more weapon types, if there was more skills you could use, there was more, ways to deal damage that wasn't just, hey, let's fuse one super powerful material to a super powerful weapon and just get the numbers as high as they can. Because there were times, even early in the game, that I felt severely underpowered when I didn't think I needed to be that underpowered. And I was like, I just feel like I'm just getting the damage numbers higher and higher. I'm not creatively doing things until later on. Then I was like, I'm gonna do this and fuse this and do some creative way to like get across this enemy. But that complexity in Elden Ring's combat I felt was a little missing, especially having played Elden Ring last year, playing Tears of the Kingdom again this year. So what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I have 2 points on what you said. The first being, you want abilities, you want combat abilities in Tears of the Kingdom. In Elden Ring, you pick up so many different, such a huge variety of click one button and you're going to do an awesome ability, right? But the challenge being, well, you got to wait for a window, you got to make sure you're safe, you're not going to have any drawbacks, because if you whiff this, you're going to pay the price, right?
Yeah.
I think Tears of the Kingdom would definitely benefit from like some combat abilities. I think in Twilight Princess and maybe in Wind Waker.
Wind Waker had it too.
You had that one where you could like dodge roll twice, like around the backside of a dark nut, and then you like spin up to like cut off their armor, right?
Yeah. Even just the normal Bokoblins and Moblins in Forsaken Fortress and stuff in Wind Waker.
Yeah.
And so Skyward Sword had complexity to its combat, because enemies would be like this, and you had to kind of swing in the appropriate direction or stab sometimes and do all that. So that was that was kind of missing in these 2 games, I felt.
I agree. If you're not doing the fuse and like building these giant structures, every battle pretty much feels the same, in Tears of the Kingdom. Like there really is not a huge amount of variety, whether it's a bokoblin or a giant moblin or a Lionel. If you just parry, you just do a flurry rush, you'll be fine.
Yeah, it's always the flurry rushes. I remember, but one cool thing, like I'll give you guys a cool little fuse situation that I had. It was twice I had to do this. There was once with a Lionel and once with a normal bokoblin. They're wearing stone masks. So I realized that I had to like make a really hard shield, and then I parried at the mask, and I eventually broke the mask. So that was really cool. And
some cool interactions. Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild are the king of interactions, right? Like you'll interact with so many things in so many ways that you never thought you could. So that's definitely a big plus, but I don't know, that's not really combat centric. But
I do like what you said, Shane, about the sage abilities, because like I know I was talking to you a lot while I was playing the game, and I was like, I turned all of them off. The only one I kept on was Tulin, because I'm always gliding, I'm always flying. But then
you can take them off.
Yeah, you can disable them. Actually.
Oh my god! I would have done that so long.
I actually like having.
It's so annoying.
I told Sean here. I told them I loved having all of them with me because it kind of felt like strategy a little bit. Like, okay, I can have her here, and then I have I can use like the ball here and then the electric field here or whatever. And I always try to do that just because I'm like I don't want to waste my weapons or whatever. So I love that aspect of it, and I always like kind of what I wished Nintendo did with that actually. If this is still part of the same thing as like I wish they made it a wheel instead. Like I could just okay. I don't want to say this is not a good comparison, but you know how in FF16, you would like hold the RT and then you choose the ability, right? Kind of wish there's something like that. So I'm like, oh man, this adds depth to where like I have to like use these like stages to my advantage. But I guess maybe they didn't want that, so that's why they didn't give you a wheel. Also, it doesn't work all the time just because sometimes they just run away from you.
Yeah, it's weird they have to run up and then press A. It's a little tedious.
So it was just like I was telling Nishan that I thought it was really surprising that Nintendo has like these characters, but they don't, like, just run away from you. Like you can't just like always just use them whenever you want to, because I'm like that actually adds a lot of depth there that could have been expanded on. But you were talking about fuse, right? So like for me, fuse for the base weapons, like I really liked in the beginning of the game because I thought I was like, oh, instead of having a stick, I now have a stick rock, and I thought it was really good at the beginning. Of course, I'm not saying it just like degrades itself later on, but for me, like eventually it got to a point where I was like, oh, okay, I opened this chest, I got this, I have this really good sword, combine it, and it kind of turned into like almost like Breath of the Wild for me, where I'm like, oh, okay, I have this ice thing, and I can stun him with that more, I can stun him with this lightning or whatever,
I feel like I didn't find as many cool fuse combos later on into the game. But I think what Tears of the Kingdom did really well was with the fusing with your bow and arrow. I absolutely love that. That completely changed how I actually like encounter certain enemies or like engage them, whether it be with the bomb or electrocute them or whatever. And sometimes it was fun too when I accidentally used the bomb, within the lava area and just it exploded. Really. I don't know if you guys fought the Gleeoks, but elemental fusions of your arrows are very important when fighting Gleeoks. And it's always fun to do that. Have you guys fought the Gleeoks in Tears of the Kingdom?
I have fought them.
Yeah.
You did not ask if I have defeated any.
Yes, I did not ask, But that is a nice transition into something I wanted to talk about next, and that is the bosses. Because I think the three of us can, hands down, right now, agree that Elden Ring has the better bosses.
Oh, yeah.
But I think that'll give us some time to talk about Elden Ring more now. Because I love the Gleeoks. They were fun. They were hard. They felt like FromSoftware bosses. I love the final boss of the game. I think it is probably one of my favorite final bosses or even boss fights in any video game. But FromSoft is the king of boss battles and bosses in general. Like, no game studio has ever designed such unique and difficult bosses, because of course everyone knows, like, the whole meme is Elden Ring for Dark Souls, it's difficult, but like the reward and the rewarding feeling of beating a boss, it's like no other. So like, how did you guys feel about a lot of the Elden Ring bosses? Because there was a lot in that game. There was a lot of them.
Yeah, I think, in all FromSoftware games, not even just Elden Ring, like one of the greatest parts about the boss battle is the spectacle of it.
Yeah.
Sometimes the build up, like you hear legends of this ancient king who could wield lightning. He destroyed the dragons, and you're building up, and then you enter the the kiln of the first flame in Dark Souls 1, and then you get to see the king and what he's become and everything, and all the build up like makes a spectacle, and the music and the environments, just the atmosphere of all the Souls bosses are just so incredible, which is something that Tears of the Kingdom does not quite have. Now, Tears of the Kingdoms, their bosses are a bit more puzzle oriented rather than just pure like 1v1 combat. But I definitely prefer the FromSoftware style. As I mentioned earlier, everything is just so precise. Everything hinges on every swing. The multiple phases of every boss, I think, is a big deal. When you get a boss down to half health and then they transform and they introduce a new mechanic in the middle of the fight. I think goes a long way to like stretching that hype, because you have that initial hype of just seeing them, and then you finally make it halfway after 3 tries, and you're like, yes, oh my gosh, finally, and they got a whole new phase, and it just wrecks you, and you're like, oh man, okay, so not only do I have to make it through the first half, then they're gonna introduce fire. This guy's gonna freaking stick his arm into a dragon head, and shit's gonna get crazy.
And sometimes the boss's second phase is an entirely new health bar. Malenia does that. Godfrey did that. A few other Elden Ring bosses did that.
I mean, you could get to half health and there's a whole new boss introduced. Remember the
essentially fighting 2 bosses.
It's always keeping you on your toes. Like it's never like the same thing. It's always like, hey, surprise this, or they throw something new at you, and for not only just the bosses for Elden Ring, but my thing is like, why I like the combat so much in Elden Ring 2 is just the enemy variety itself. Is just there's just so many enemies with so many different attack patterns and types that, like, to me, that's like kind of what always makes me like get excited for the combat, because there's always something new to learn when it comes to that. Which of course, I mean I know in Tears of the Kingdom there's different enemies, and of course they have the different colors and they get harder, but to me Elden Ring really like introduced way more variety of enemies and just different attack types, it kept me more it kept me way more engaged with that than just the different goblins just turning different colors.
Because that's another thing that brought in the mundanity, I guess you can say, with combat in Tears of the Kingdom. Same enemy types, same like pattern. You like see an enemy, you know what you're gonna do, you know how you're gonna take it down, because it's like the same rodeo all over again with the Bokoblins and the Moblins and the Stalfos and everything. And I will say, Tears of the Kingdom added new enemy types. I still feel like they could have added more, especially with the wide inventory of enemies they have in Zelda games. Like, where are the Dark Nuts? Where are the Dekubabas? Where are the Iron Knuckles? Like, Lunatunes, you might remember a whole bunch of all these Zelda enemies, and they're all missing in open world Zelda, and it would be so cool to have had them in Tears of the Kingdom. Just like how Elden Ring had so many different kinds of enemies. Like, you're in one area, the enemies are different from another area, which are different from another area. So it keeps, like Shane said, it keeps you on your toes.
And that can even play into like environmental storytelling as well. Like you walk into Caelid and you see these knights fighting these scarlet rot riddled T-Rex dogs, right? And that kind of plays off with Malenia and like her lore and her backstory and everything, and it's intriguing. Like you see that and you're like, oh my god, like I want to go in there, I want to fight that, I want to experience that. When you've come across like your 183rd Bokoblin camp, you're like, here we go again, all right, like, let's it's just the same thing.
And they all come from Ganondorf, so there's no like, there's not much interesting stuff. What I do like about the Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom enemies is with the game being a little more stylized, they have like unique behavioral patterns and they emote in very different ways. I remember I was watching the Breath of the Wild documentary a while back, and they made a specific Foley noise for a Bokoblin picking its nose, and I thought that was really funny. So
awesome.
in that way, like, there's some more personality in these enemies, but if there was more of them, if I didn't feel sick of seeing the same thing over and over again, it would have been nice. And like I do want to talk a little bit about the bosses. I like the bosses in Tears of the Kingdom. I actually really enjoyed them because
I thought they were great. I liked all the bosses. Yeah.
It reminded me of traditional 3D Zelda bosses in like Twilight Princess, Ocarina of Time, and all that. And like I hated the bosses in Breath of the Wild so much. I hated them because like I remember last year when the two of us were playing Elden Ring, like I was telling you, Shane, because you also played Breath of the Wild for the first time last year. And I was telling you and other people in our friend group, I was like, this game, Elden Ring, puts Breath of the Wild to shame with its bosses. Like, even just some of the more simpler bosses, like, I remember I was in, like, one of the tunnels, and then I found, like, the Dragonkin Soldier, which is, like, a optional mini-boss, and that was an over-the-top, really fun boss. And then...
I was jaw-dropping when you come across him for the first time. He's, like, sitting in that... Was he sitting... No, I found him. There was like this giant skeleton sitting in the throne, and then the Dragonkin drops down from the ceiling. Yeah,
it's the same.
I was like, what did I just stumble across?
Yeah.
Oh my god!
And then like even like the Black Blade Kindred, like the giant gargoyle that just comes swooping down in the Eternal City or something. So like those are like, of course, Elden Ring does the spectacle well, but it also has that difficulty, and yeah, that's just one thing I loved about Elden Ring a lot. And even, of course, the main bosses, Malenia, Godfrey, Margit, all these bosses were just so much fun. Radon, like what you said about the lore leading up to the boss, Radon does that perfectly.
Radon is a perfect example of that. That's what I was thinking.
They've got the tournament, and like the guy gives this big speech about who's going to take him down, and yeah, the build-up is incredible.
Yeah, and especially like when Radon, when he makes like specific noises, like you know, I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but like it sounds like he's like calling in space or something. It's just so cool. It makes you just want to fight him, and Elden Ring does that really well. It just makes you really get pumped up for that.
Yeah.
And I just gotta cut one more thing on Radon. Like when you and all of like your partners are all running on the beach, like up to him, like as the first time you experience that, like you know, in Souls games you're always by yourself. And I remember looking to my left, looking to my right, and I was like, dude, it's me and the boys. And then I get just rocketed by an arrow, like right through the chest. I'm like, oh, okay, it's going.
I love how the battle starts, you get on Torrent and you're going, and then boom, the arrows just hit you immediately.
Yeah. Such a great start.
It's one of the best fights I've fought in recent memory, and I don't know if you've beaten Tears of the Kingdom yet, Lunatunes, but I will say, it would be awesome if you experience the final boss for yourself.
Oh yeah.
I won't tell you why, but it is probably my favorite final boss of all time. It is genuinely amazing.
I'll tell you what, full disclosure, and throughout this entire conversation, I'm going to be as objective as possible towards both. I really didn't like Tears of the Kingdom that much.
Yeah.
To the point where I never finished the game, and I just watched the end through cutscenes and Let's Plays.
Yeah.
I legit like. Yeah. I didn't want to play anymore. I moved on to other games. So I've seen the final boss. I'm actually very
curious to hear why you. What made you?
I think this is a perfect transition to our next topic, which I think Dylan he'll answer a lot of these questions in this topic, I'm sure, which is about exploration, because I remember like the first week of Tears of the Kingdom, we had a talk with another YouTuber, Andres Restart, and your biggest, I wouldn't say complaint, but like one of your big downsides was there's a lot happening in this game at once. So you wanna elaborate on that? How you feel about that later on?
Yeah. And right before I get to that, I do want to make one thing, is that comparing the exploration between Tears and Elden Ring and Breath of the Wild is that Elden Ring did pull a lot from Breath of the Wild. I feel like in its non-linearity and exploration. We can touch on that more later. But what did it persisted throughout the rest of my playthrough is that there's so much side content in Tears of the Kingdom, and I'll explain it this way. Let's say you go to a restaurant, right, and you order an appetizer. Have the appetizer. That was a really good side quest appetizer. That was really great. All right, but here's my main course. Like, here's like my big main plot, dungeon crawl, boss fight. That's the entree, right? That's what you really came here for. Tears of the Kingdom to me felt like I was having a meal of like 20 appetizers.
It was
just like appetizer after appetizer after appetizer, and I was like, I want something big to happen, man. I want like the big meal right now. But every time I tried to go and do a main quest, oh, there's a shrine. Well, I'm here. I should probably do that now. Oh, there's a sky view tower. Well, I'm here. I ought to do that now. Oh, well, now I'm in the sky. Oh, here's some sky islands. I really want to do the main quest, but I gotta explore these sky islands first. You know, like I could never get to what I wanted to do because all these side things, which a lot of people probably really loved. Like the shrines were great. The sky islands were awesome. The depths were incredible. But at times when I just wanted to like really progress the main story or like do something more substantial, I would spend hours in the game and walk away with like 2 new heart containers and maybe a hat. I'm like, did I really accomplish all that much with my time? Like, did it respect my time? Not so much. Whereas if I spend a couple hours in Final Fantasy 16, which I'm playing right now, you know, I'm killing gods every hour, right? Like it feels like the pacing is great. The pacing in Tears of the Kingdom just killed me. It drugged me down constantly. Mad respect for the game. I don't hate the game. I know it's good. Like it is sold well. I've seen the reactions online. People love the game, and I can fully like take a step back and understand that I'm in the minority here.
It just wasn't for you.
It just wasn't for me. It just wasn't for me.
And to go off of your restaurant analogy, Tears of the Kingdom is like tapas or dim sum, whereas like Elden Ring is like a steak dinner.
Oh
yeah, exactly. For sure.
So I'm actually in the opposite camp where like I actually really enjoyed being not really distracted necessarily, but what I really liked about Tears of the Kingdom is like I love that power fantasy where I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this like good content, like substantially good content, and I want to get powerful from it. And so, and even Nishan knows this, like I got so addicted to just doing the shrines and doing all the side content that I'm like like what 20 hours in, I'm like, yeah, I haven't done the first dungeon yet.
Yeah, and that bothered me. Yeah, I was like, man, I'm like 50 hours in. I've done 2 dungeons. And I've got like 10 hearts to show for it. I'm like, I feel like I'm not making progress fast enough.
Yeah.
But it may be because I'm so busy in my real life.
Oh,
I got
true.
Full-time job, wife, kid, friends outside of gaming to look at. I don't have time to put 100 hours into Tears of the Kingdom.
I think that's also I wouldn't say a problem, but that's just something that people have noticed with modern open-air Zelda games or open-world Zelda games. It's that the main story is such a minority of the experience. It's a minor part of the experience, and that's just what it is now. And it's something I'm also getting used to because like me and Dylan were talking about this like before the episode started recording. Like Zelda games, like there is a noticeable difference between the Ocarina of Time formula and the Breath of the Wild formula. Whereas where the Ocarina of Time formula with like Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword, all that, the story was the main thing. Whereas now the exploration and the optional stuff is the main thing. It's kind of like you're creating your own story, which it's cool. I like it, but I'm still getting used to it because of how much I loved Ocarina, Majora, Twilight Princess, Wind Waker, all that. So yeah, I will say the things you can do in this game, there is never a lack of things to do in the game. Even 100 plus hours later, I still have things that I haven't done in the game. Because I was talking to some friends earlier, and they're like, oh, did you do this? Did you do this? And I was like, oh, dang, I didn't even... Like, I forgot that I could do that. And that's really good. But sometimes there were times where I did actually feel overwhelmed. And that's when I was like, I'm going to do this and this and this today in this play session. And I've noticed that I have done that with normal FromSoftware games as well. Like when I first played Bloodborne, I was like, I'm going to go to this area and get these blood echoes so I can open up this shortcut and then level up. And once that's done, I think I'm done for the day. And then like the next time I'll like have another goal in my mind. And Elden Ring was like the perfect game to do that. Because I was like, I'll do this in this area, and then once I'm done, I'll be done. With Tears of the Kingdom, I had those, but you just see things in the world that get you incredibly sidetracked, and it's great, it's fun, but it's also, there was a point in the game where I had so many markers that I put on my map that I forgot what all of them were.
For me, it wasn't really okay. So like I don't get distracted necessarily as easily. Like if I want to do a main mission, then I'll like go do it, right? But what kept me was like the beginning of, for me personally, like Tears of the Kingdom was really hard in the beginning. Like I thought I was just getting trashed on because you get like 3 hearts. So
hard,
for me, for me, I was like, man, I like if I'm getting trashed on now, like what's gonna happen if I do a main dungeon and I get stuck and I have to go back? So that fear really made me like, oh no, I need to go grind these shrines. Now I don't want to call it a grind because for me it wasn't, because I generally did enjoy the shrines, but that was kind of one of the things that like pushed me to like, okay, I can't do the main stuff until I do this. And I'm guessing that's what you also felt as well too, right? Where like the game was just like like the game is like, I mean, of course it gets easier, but the game like and eventually it's fine and it gets easier, but it's like, man, the beginning of the game just really like just kicks you hard.
I remember the first like almost 2 weeks of the game, you're just doing shrines. I was like, hey, did you go here? Did you go here? Did you do this dungeon? Did you see this character? Did you see this memory? And you're like, oh no, I'm at like 50 shrines now, and I'm like,
oh yeah. I remember I didn't go do that side quest for that professor to just go to the depths for the first time, and I was already like 50 shrines in, because I was like, because my thing is I really wanted to become powerful so that way I can really just enjoy the combat and engage it more. But like I just felt like in the beginning I was just getting trashed on. Plus I felt like Link is just a lot slower compared to a lot of enemies. So I was like, no, I need to power myself up, and then I'm gonna go to these depths and then do everything. And I can see that as being like pretty annoying for someone who like wants to really just engage the main story more than just do all the side content, and that could hinder it. And I see that in a lot of like Reddit posts too, people saying like, man, I think Tears of the Kingdom is just too hard at the beginning to where like I don't want to play, because if I want to play the main content, I'm not confident enough about that. So I can see that as being a major problem, but that might be more for like combat than exploration though.
Yeah, as far as on the exploration with Elden Ring versus Tears of the Kingdom, to go back to my Caelid example, you're walking through Caelid, you see these knights fighting these T-Rex dogs, and you're like, holy crap, I want to go over there and check that out. When I'm in Tears of the Kingdom and I see another shrine, there's no interest, there's no like intrigue, like, ooh, I wonder what this shrine is. It's going to be a puzzle that requires you to build something, and that's cool. But it lacked that like almost narrative, like intrigue to me, that mystery, like, oh man, like what is that? Oh, it's a shrine. Yeah, it's got the green tornado cup. Yeah, it's a shrine. Okay. Yes, it almost felt like I was checking boxes.
Yeah. Shrines, chasms,
Skyview Tower check. In Elden Ring, I was like, oh my, what's over there? What's over here? I want to see it all. That's what, and that leads me to my next thing is the lack of UI in Elden Ring. The lack of telling you where to go. There's no objective points. There's no waypoints or anything like that. Like any discovery you find, you discovered it because you were
Zelda does
interested
it
enough.
Similarly, because all the map markers, you put them there yourself. So that was one thing I liked, that it doesn't do like the Ubisoft or Horizon thing where it's like, oh, you have to go here and this is the place you find this, or you have to go here for this side quest because this is where you'll find it. Because it like sometimes the side quests give you clues like, oh, maybe you should go over here at this waterfall in this like scenic place, and you have to kind of find it yourself. So I liked that, but I do agree with your UI thing. Though there is a pro HUD mode, I feel like some UI elements and HUD elements could be like eliminated entirely. Yeah.
I think Elden Ring just did it in a smarter way, like where the what is it? I don't want to call it bonfires, but they
Sites of Grace.
Sites of Grace. They direct you exactly like, hey, you should go here. And just they kind of more just integrated with more of like the game itself. But yeah, I agree with that. Like it did make exploration more fun in Elden Ring somewhat, because it's like there's nothing, so you're just kind of like, you know what, I'm just gonna go off wherever looks cool, and you never feel overwhelmed too either. I guess that's also a fair point.
You open a treasure chest and you get teleported to halfway across the map, and
I was what is so scared when that happened the first time. I was like, I'm not supposed to be here. I need to get back. And what made it even cooler is you weren't allowed to fast travel back, I think. Because it transports you to Caelid, and you have to get to a site of grace, and only then you can fast travel back.
I'm trying to think, could you fast travel back, or was there just not incentive to because you wanted to find a site of grace before you traveled back?
I feel like I would have fast traveled back immediately because I was getting one-shotted by all the...
Yeah, I think you're right. Actually, I think you are right. Yeah, it respawns you at that same spot.
Yeah. So what Elden Ring does really good with exploration is that there's always like you're riding on torrent every like minute or every like even sometimes 30 seconds there is something there for you to encounter, something there for you to do, something there for you to fight. Sometimes a giant enemy will fly in somewhere. Sometimes you might find a cave. Sometimes you might find like some new area or something. Something will always be happening. And that's what I really enjoyed about it. And I think Limgrave was like a really good starting area. Because like, even though Breath of the Wild had its Great Plateau tutorial, Tears of the Kingdom had its Great Sky Island tutorial. Limgrave, like, even like Elden Ring's tutorial, majority of the people who played the game I feel like missed out on the actual tutorial.
I skipped it. Oh, yeah. I walked right past it.
Yeah, oh my God. Same. And then once you get into Limgrave, you're just going all over the place and figuring things out yourself. And because there's so much variety of enemies, so much variety of like landscapes and terrain and all that, it's just fun to figure things out as you go along. I will say, for Tears of the Kingdom, I want to get your guys' opinion on this. I think the highlight of the game for me, the greatest thing about Tears of the Kingdom that I've seen no other video game ever do, is the verticality and the layers. Because you start off in the sky, you start the game off in the sky. Actually, no, technically you start the game in the depths, but then you get up into the sky, you go into the surface, you go into the depths, and you go back up into the surface, in the sky, and you're going all over the place. And I talked to a lot of people who said they saved the depths for the end game. Whereas me, I was crazy. And the first weekend of the game, I was down in the depths doing all this stuff, getting all the gloom inflicted on me. My hearts were depleting. It's finding all these light roots, because what I loved about the depths was it was a big kind of like surprise. Everyone was like, oh, it's reusing the same Hyrule, just having the sky. Is it going to be a legitimate sequel? And I always thought there is going to be an underground. I feel like there will be an underground. I want to see what it's like. I want to see how it compares to things like Siofra River in Elden Ring, Nokron the Eternal City, and all that. And maybe in some ways Elden Ring did it better, but there is an entire Hyrule in the underground, and I love that so much. And of course, sky and surface as well, with a lot of changes. So what do you guys think about those 3 levels?
Yeah, the depths were my favorite part of the game. That's by far, I mean, I talked earlier about the importance of the intrigue and the mystery and the discovery. The depths were that for me, because you can't see. You have no idea what's beyond the darkness, beyond the abyss.
I love that.
I loved shooting like my arrows with the little light bulbs.
The light bulbs,
Making your own little like path through the darkness was so incredible. And when you finally come up on a ridge and you can see like a light just off in the distance, whether it's a light route or one of the I forget what they're called, the place where they make all the batteries.
Oh, the mines.
Oh,
yeah, whether you see like one of those mines or something like that. Or sometimes
you see a flux constructs of red light just circling around.
Oh, yeah.
You can just see just something glimmering off in the distance, and that's when I was like, I want to go see what that is. The depths were so fun. Like my favorite parts of the games were anytime I was down in the depths. I would be curious to see, and I think this is what happens when you get all the light routes. Don't the entire depths illuminate?
Well, it doesn't illuminate. There's still darkness in there, but you can find where you're going a lot easier. It's easier to find where you're going.
I would very much like to see what the depths geographically looks like with no darkness, and then compare that to the underground of Elden Ring, because Elden Ring's underground has that style. I mean, you talked about Siofra River. Or Nokron the Eternal City. You go down there and like the stars are incredible, like the architecture, the structures that you see in the distance are like jaw-dropping. Whereas the depths, I mean, it's just a bunch of rocks with some like mushrooms and stuff like that. It's very cool to see. But I'd be curious stylistically to see what it looks like with no darkness, and then compare it to Elden Ring.
Yeah. I liked that there was just a lot of gloom around. So sometimes if you fall somewhere, you're screwed. You might lose a bunch of hearts. Or there's like an entire gloom puddle, so sometimes you might have to fly, make a machine to fly over it, or do something to get across. So, Shane, what did you think about the verticality and the layers of Tears of the Kingdom?
I mean, I absolutely like loved it. Both just an aspect that like each layer to get to one of them is a puzzle in itself, or there's just so many different ways just to like explore them. To me, was just a lot of fun, which is like kind of what led me to enjoy the explorability more of like Here's the Kingdom, because there's just way more creative than just having, you know, torrent, right? It's like, am I gonna fly to the island? Am I gonna go from, you know, this like tower, or traverse it through like the water with that specific armor set or whatever, right? And the same thing for the depths too. And I think what really enhanced it to me, which was the like specific times when they kind of combined all three of them together, like with those like mazes.
Labyrinths, yes.
Yeah, I love I don't know if you've done the labyrinths, but like the way they connect all three of them together.
It's genius, yeah.
It makes it, in my opinion, the most like, it's like, in my opinion, it's the best content that Tears of the Kingdom has.
I remember,
I just loved it.
Like, once we were on Discord just chatting, and you were like, dude, you need to do the labyrinths. It's the best thing I've done in the game. And I was like, really? Because I remember the labyrinths in Breath of the Wild. I was like, I just went through the labyrinth, I found a shrine, and that was it. So, like, what does Tears of the Kingdom do differently? Like, I know some of them are in the sky now, but I was like, what's so different? And it's really cool. Like, you do the labyrinth in the surface, then they tell you go up into the sky. You have to fly all the way over there to figure out a way to get over there with a flying machine or whatever. You do the maze in the sky, you do the labyrinth in the sky, and then from there you skydive all the way down into the depths and do a little bit of a maze there, fight a boss, and then it's done. But one thing I didn't like about those is the bosses were always the same at the end. It was just a flux construct. But the fact that, like, my big wish for this game was utilize an area or a dungeon which uses all three of the layers: surface, sky, and depths. And I really like that. I really like that they did that. The
first time doing it was just such a, like, there's so many emotions at once. Like, it was just oh, this is the same thing, like, in the beginning. I was like, oh wow, I'm in the sky, and just I got that really good scary feeling when you finally jumped down to the depths. It was just absolutely amazing. So I love those feelings that I got from, you know, the whole entire thing just being connected. Yeah.
I will.
And but
yeah. No, what were you saying? Continue.
No, I'm just saying, like, overall, like, I agree with like the points you guys made. Is like the depths were like really cool. I really enjoyed them. I actually did find them to be pretty creative as well in terms of like them being distinct. You know, when you go closer to like the volcano area of the map, you know, it's like lava everywhere. There's different, like, you know, things you have to be careful with versus, like, you know, if you drop from a hole from somewhere else.
You know, what's cool is wherever there's a hot spring on the surface, underneath in the depths there is lava underneath those hot springs.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
that's good attention to detail.
Yeah.
Actually, my favorite thing actually was how the light routes are connected to the shrines. Because if you weren't using, if you don't want to use a guide, the fact that you can use the shrines to help you find the light routes and the light routes to help you find the shrines was so cool.
Yeah.
And just going between them, like, just kind of helped, like, you know, just kind of figuring where everything was, and I thought that was a really great design choice. Yeah. So it always benefited you going either shrine hunting or like going route hunting.
Yeah, because once I completed all the shrines and I was finding all the light routes, I think I found all the light routes first, because I found all the surface shrines and I needed to find the sky shrines. But what helped me get all the light routes was like, oh, is this shrine corresponding to this light route? Is this shrine corresponding to this one? And for a while, I was just flipping up and down on the D-pad back and forth just to see, like, where is that one small difference? And when I would find it, I would just pinpoint it and I would be like, that's where I need to go.
Yeah. That's cool. As far as I didn't really talk about the Sky Islands themselves. I did think they were fun. And the kind of the fear factor did increase a little bit, because there were a couple of puzzles that required you to, like, cross gaps. And, you know, if you fall, like, you're screwed. You know, you have to find your way all the way back up again. You know, there was, like, one where I had to get one of, like, the green stones and take it over to the shrine.
Oh, yeah.
And I fused it to a log. Then I used Ultra Hand to push the log across a gap, pull it back, and then I jumped on the log and used recall to trace or whatever, but the log like rolled as I was like crossing the gap, so I had to like really carefully teeter Link, over the log, and it scared the shit out of me. But I made it, and I got it over on the other side, and I was like, "Ooh!" That actually got my blood pumping a little bit, because if you fall, like, there's massive consequences. Yeah. Overall, I was surprised the Sky Islands were kind of limited to just like shrines and
puzzles. A little more sparse.
I was expecting a little bit like more open areas and like more places to explore and discover. They're more like pieces of a bunch of like, smaller Sky Islands. With the marketing made me think like, oh, there's a whole nother world out there. Yeah. Pretty much I thought the Sky Islands were going to be what the depths were. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think when you take into account all three services, it does all come together to be like an insane amount of content. Yeah. I'm not complaining at all. But I was surprised a little bit as what the Sky Islands ended up actually being.
And Lunar Tunes, you've played Twilight Princess and Skyward Sword, I am assuming, right? Mm-hmm. So you know what City in the Sky is like. You know what Skyloft is like. And when I saw the Great Sky Island, I was like, this, like, I hope to see something like this. I hope to see something like Skyloft or City in the Sky. And I didn't get that, and I was a little upset. I was a little bummed out by that, but in the end, like, the puzzles you do up there are actually pretty cool. Like,
they are fun.
Yeah, they are fun. Yeah. And especially when you are getting the Zonite set, there are some really cool puzzles to get the Zonite set or the Zonite armor. And those felt like small little mini dungeons, and I was like, that's what I wanted to see in the Sky Islands. So that was pretty cool. But otherwise, I wouldn't say the Sky Islands were a disappointment, but they're very much, in my opinion, overshadowed by the surface changes and the depths. Yeah. I
feel like also just the design of the shrines too. I felt like many of them were just like, hey, bring the crystal over here.
Yeah.
And that was most of it, which is fine, but like, I felt like pretty much most of them were that. I like the ones that were cool, that were like, hey, you have to drop and then hit all the circles, and
that was fun. I like the skydiving.
I wish they had more of like those, not necessarily that you just fall down, but something like unique, where instead of just like, okay, hey, there's a crystal there, go bring it here, and you just make your platform or whatever to like bring it over. So I kind of wish there was more variety in that. And I'm with you guys too. I thought they were gonna have like huge regions of like, because I was like, oh, if it's like, because I remember before the game came out, I was like, oh, is it gonna be like Skyward Sword? We have like the whole, like these huge islands or whatever, and then But
I will say, since Shane, you haven't played Skyward Sword yet, I will say that I think Lunar Tunes, you will agree in me saying this, that Tears of the Kingdom is what they wanted Skyward Sword to be, because Skyward Sword Sky is good, and I will say the only good thing about Skyward Sword Sky is the music. I love the music when you're flying, but there is not
so you don't like the island, so you guys don't like this, like the whole in the air stuff?
I like Skyloft in Skyward Sword a lot. Skyloft is one of my favorite areas in like any video game, but exploring the sky overworld, there's just not much to do in there at all, unfortunately. But that's kind of what they wanted to do with the game, but with the technical limitations of the Wii, they just couldn't do it. And I was hoping they would add more stuff to do in the in the Switch version, but they didn't, which is whatever. But Tears of the Kingdom has the more stuff to do in the sky, with the islands, the archipelagos, the puzzles, and all that. But one quick thing, bringing this back to Elden Ring. Elden Ring didn't have a sky island. It had a very big surface with the lands between, and then it had its underground area. How do you compare, like, Lunar Tunes talked about this a bit, but Shane, how would you compare the depths of Tears of the Kingdom with the underground of Elden Ring?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Well, for me,
different.
like, for me it's different, because like the depths for Zelda were just like, it's a huge open world, just like the surface, exactly, and like not exactly, but you're just exploring it. There's a lot more unknowns. Whereas to me, like the underground of Elden Ring were more like kind of like specifically designed levels almost. Like they kind of almost had a set path. It was very curated, you know, for specific content.
Yeah.
And so to me, I view the underground parts of Elden Ring more as levels, whereas the underground part of Tears of the Kingdom for me is just an open world.
It's a map.
So I think so to me that's the big distinction, because like, and plus, you know, to me I don't go back to the underground parts. So, like once you beat certain underground sections, you're like, okay, I'm done with it, it's good. But you're always constantly coming back to, you know, the depths and exploring, and there's always so much to do there.
I'll piggyback off what you just said. Like Elden Ring, the fact that their underground was so, I don't want to say so linear, but more linear, more constrained, did I feel like give them more variety in the environments, and not just necessarily the underground, but the overworld as well. Like you've got blood swamps, you've got whatever the heck Caelid is, you've got the Lindell Royal Capital, the Nokron Eternal City, and of course like the snowy peaks. Obviously, Tears of the Kingdom has grassy plains, snowy mountains, desert, but I think Elden Ring's variety of environments and the fact that the underground was a little bit more linear allowed them to get a little bit crazier with your, like, the places you're exploring.
Yeah. Even the art direction, where they could be like, there's one area I didn't explore in Elden Ring. It was the Deep Root Depths, but I saw some people go in there, and that place just looks messed up. And like with the art style, the look, the colors, and all that. And same with, like, of course, Caelid, Nokron, all that. So I think you're right in that way, that with the variety and some of the linearity allowed them to just go crazy with the visuals and how things looked.
Because aside from like the one section underneath the volcano, the depths are mostly just like rocks and gloom and mushrooms, you know, like the entire thing, right? So there's not a lot of variety there. And then another aspect that we didn't touch on that I think plays a huge part in exploration and the intrigue of wanting to explore is the rewards that the game gives you for doing so. You know, you see a cave in Elden Ring, like maybe you've done 20 caves by now, but you don't know what boss is going to be at the end, and you don't know what the reward is going to be. When you see your 83rd shrine, you know it's going to be a little ball of light that's going to help you get a heart container or a stamina vessel. Maybe you find like a cool weapon in there, maybe not. By the time you're in end game, you're already, you know, stacked with like good weapons anyways, so it doesn't matter too much. The depths did have some cool rewards, like the different tunics from previous Zelda games. I thought like those were like some of the most fun to find. Just like from nostalgia and stuff like that, and it's cool to see what they look like in the game. But I think Elden Ring had the better rewards overall, the higher variety. Even though sometimes like you're a strength build and you find a spell, you know, it literally does nothing for you. Aside from that, I feel like Elden Ring had better rewards.
I think like one thing that Elden Ring did good was I think the boss fights themselves were great rewards. Just like
for sure.
Because they're just so creative and just so much fun that even if you don't get a spell or whatever that you need to enhance your build, just the fact that you get to experience just like a really well designed boss. And the dungeons in Elden Ring, I could say, like had really good bosses as well. That alone was just enough to be like, yes, I want to keep finding more and keep doing this. Whereas for, you know, I guess it depends if you're more into puzzles, and I guess you might like the shrines more just by themselves. But I felt like just the reward of a boss is just so significant to me more than just like, you know, a ball of light that will just give you a heart or whatever. Especially later on in Tears of the Kingdom when you're already so overpowered where you're like, okay. You know, I feel like even in Elden Ring, even if you are overpowered, you still want to fight a boss, and that's a reward. But like, if you're too overpowered in Tears of the Kingdom, you're kind of like, okay, do I really need to do this? Like, I don't need to. I don't need anything. So
now to play devil's advocate to that is when you're overpowered in Elden Ring and you go back to Lemgrave and you go through a dungeon that you forgot to hit earlier and you then shot the boss. And you're like,
That's one of those build your confidence boosters before, you know.
You know what that was for me? That was like one of the Erdtree watchdogs, but it was also the Soldier of Godric when I actually did the tutorial, and I was like, oh, I completely missed this. And then I see the boss at the end. It was the Soldier of Godric with the giant health bar, and 2 hits and he was gone. That was pretty funny. But any final things you guys want to say about exploration before we move on to our final point about the story?
I guess you can go ahead.
I guess the only other thing I'd have to say is like I didn't talk about the glider at all, or like the fact that you can use the Sky Islands to kind of scout the land below to see where
Yes,
you want to
yeah,
go next. I think that was a really cool,
yeah,
unique aspect that Tears of the Kingdom has that obviously Elden Ring does not. But I guess that's the only other point that I got.
yeah,
My big thing with exploration was overall is that like Tears of the Kingdom has that creativity to exploration. Like it's more like Elden Ring, I think mainly is just torrent, whereas
yeah.
like I feel like in Tears of the Kingdom, it's more than just that. It's like the builds, the horse, the everything, right? And there's
Mhm.
just so many different ways to explore or just to traverse the environment, which is why which is that's why I like the exploration a lot more in Tears of the
Yeah.
Kingdom.
And that's why I was also okay with them sort of reusing a lot of the same places, because your traversal, how you get to places, how you interact with things, it was all very different. And we didn't talk much about the surface changes, but I have talked about that in other videos, so I won't dabble into that too much, but there was a decent bit, and I made sure, I'll say this. A lot of people were saying, oh, I'm going to be playing Breath of the Wild to get ready for Tears of the Kingdom, to get prepared for Tears of the Kingdom, right? I made sure to do the complete opposite and stay away from Breath of the Wild. Because I was like, I remember a lot of the map, I remember a lot of the placements, but I want this experience to feel new and fresh, and almost like I'm rediscovering Hyrule for the first time, and that's what it felt like. So that's one thing I really loved about the depths. Or sorry, the surface in Tears of the Kingdom. That it had changes and it felt different, and it was like re-exploring and rediscovering a lot of these things. But one thing I do want to end with is the story. And I guess I enjoyed the story in Tears of the Kingdom. In Elden Ring, I guess sorta I did a bit, but this is where I feel like I'll be the most critical. So I'll start it off with this one. But my thing with the story in Zelda is that it's always like your hero's journey. You start off as like a young boy, you don't know what's happening, you're just like in your like small hometown village or whatever, and then like things just start happening, and you have to like grow up fast as like a kid who's like going out to like this new adventure to save his sister or his friends or just save the world in general, depending on what game it is happening in. In this game, like in these two games, in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, it's just like it did almost feel like a Souls game where like this has been happening. What should we do? Link, do it for us, please. And then you like see everything happening in the past. And that was the thing that like irked me the most about Breath of the Wild. I was like, I don't want the story to happen in the past. I want things to happen now, because in Skyward Sword, which is my favorite Zelda story, everything was happening in the present. The things that happened in the past were just in a painting, and then some things were told to you by some other people, and then if something's very minor, mild, out of context spoilers, but if things were happening in the past in that game, you do those things in the past. So like, that's what I wanted from Tears of the Kingdom. I will say the memories in Tears of the Kingdom were good. They were better written, better acted, better like scenario, and the cutscenes were just better. But again, it was happening in the past. Things did happen in the present. A lot more story things happened in the present, but the next Zelda game just needs to have a more engaging story. It needs to be like Skyward Sword. I hope it's like something like that, Skyward Sword, Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, which keeps me engaged. As for Elden Ring's story, I will say, all I have to say about that is I got to the end of the game, 100 hours in or whatever. I watched the Vati videos twice, and I'm still confused. But that's just me. That's just me. So what do you guys?
Even the pro Elden Ring players don't entirely know what was going on. And I think that was on purpose. I think FromSoftware left it mysterious and open-ended intentionally. But it is funny comparing these two stories because they're both told in such very different and unique ways, even compared to like your standard AAA releases. From Software has always done this, where they tie a lot of their lore and their stories to their item descriptions and environmental storytelling. And it's either up to the player to piece it together or up to the player to watch a YouTube video after the fact to figure out what the hell is going on. Whereas Tears of the Kingdom, they have the non-linear presentation, as you know, you're not only seeing memories, but you may be seeing memories out of order as well.
That's one thing I did not like.
Yeah.
Like, did you get all the memories, by the way?
I have seen all the memories, yes.
Yes. Maybe the second or third memory I got in the entire game was Ganondorf killing Sonya. And I was like, what am I supposed to do with this? Like, I don't know what leads up to this. I don't know why this happened. And I just, like, met this character who I was starting to get to know. And now I just see that she's dead. And then the memory after that was when she was talking to Zelda, getting to know her, getting to hear about Link and all that. And I'm like, this should have been in order.
I think it's the idea that Nintendo wanted you to, like, get all of this information, just piece it together. Like, I guess that's their kind of goal. It's so.
Yeah, I honestly did not have a single problem with Tears of the Kingdom story, and even like the content that's taken place in the past. I honestly thought this was one of the best Legend of Zelda stories of all time.
Like, narrative-wise, it was very good. I just think how it was presented was a little weird, you know?
Yeah, I think the only thing is if they had just presented all of the memories in order, it would have been better. I think finding the memories out of order took impact away from some things. Like you, I was a little bit deeper in when I saw that Sonya died. But when she did die, I still had quite a few memories to find at that time. And I did walk away from that memory like this would have had a lot more impact if I had seen what led up to it. You know, if you had given me more time to know Sonya, this death would have like hurt me. But instead now I feel like any memory I see that takes place prior to this, I'm kind of like, I already know what's going to happen here, you know? Yeah. So it does kind of take some of that away. So
and I do want to ask you specifically, Lunatunes. How do you think storytelling like this, Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, compares to Ocarina of Time, Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, those kinds of games?
I think the linear style of storytelling is the better way to go, just because the developers can curate it more accurately. They know what the player is going to experience when they're going to experience it, and therefore they can prepare for that. They can apply build up, apply time after the fact for the player to kind of like sit back in their chair like, oh my god, what did I just experience, you know? It's all curated. It's more organized. Where Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild, they literally just cannot do that. It is out of their control, and I think they did about as good as they could. Like, this was a very interesting idea. If nothing else, I thought what Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom did with their stories was very interesting. I don't recall any other game I've ever played that did this. Maybe if you have some examples, but it was a very unique approach, which I deeply respect.
Like piecing the stories together with memories and stuff?
Yeah, like memories out of order, the non-linearity of it all.
I think Elden Ring did a very sort of similar thing, because you have the item descriptions, you have the cryptic messages from the bosses, what they say in their dialogue. You have the cryptic messages from, what's her name, Melina and some other people. And
it might,
you just kind of piece it all together.
But piecing in Elden Ring was just so much harder than like Tears of the Kingdom. Because that's the thing with Tears of the Kingdom is like, I think at least it had like a good surface level is what I'm gonna call it, story, right? Like you can understand it, you know what the characters are and stuff. Whereas in like Elden Ring, I'm like, even if like I'm fighting like one of the end game bosses, I'm like, I have no idea like who you are or where you came from. And you know,
Elden Ring is just go become Elden Lord. Like I remember the very first cutscene of Elden Ring, the very first cutscene at the beginning of the game. They were talking about like some people, like Dung Eater and some other person, and this person and that person. I was like, what is happening right now? What are they saying? And I will say, like, Shane, you played Demon Souls. Have you played Demon Souls, Lunatunes? Yeah, I played a bit of it, but this is the funniest thing ever. I remember, like, you've beat the first boss of Demon Souls, and you have to go back to the Nexus or something, right? That's what it's called? and then you talk to the there are these stone babies or something. I forgot what they're called, like monumental something, right? And they give you this whole story, and they kept going on for so long. I went to the bathroom, came back, they were still talking. I was like, I don't know what's happening. And then they finally finished, and I was like, okay, can I go kill more enemies? But
now go ahead.
I was gonna say one really cool thing that Elden Ring didn't do this, but I'm surprised FromSoftware didn't put it in the game is if you played Sekiro, that actually had a really good surface level story, and they actually did present characters and told you everything. But in Elden Ring, they kind of didn't do that, which was actually really surprising to me. Something I just wanted to add on, FromSoftware made that decision to not tell anybody anything, and really just keep it different.
Yeah, Sekiro is kind of a weird, redheaded stepchild of the Souls franchise. They changed so much from story to combat, the lack of different builds and stuff. So it is kind of interesting. They experimented something with Sekiro, and they're like, all right, that was fun. Let's go back to our bread and butter. Which leads me to my next point, that maybe the non-linearity and the mysteriousness of Elden Ring's story was easier to swallow because it's expected from software. This is how all of their games are. So maybe it's not as jarring as when Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom completely changes their story formula. I, for one, am Souls lore junkie. I will read every single item description and try and discern as best as I can what it means. And to me, that's part of the fun, even when I'm wrong, is to kind of formulate the story in my own head. And so when I'm fighting a boss, again, even if I'm wrong, I have created a story in my head as to who this guy is, what he's done, based to the best of my abilities, based off of the items that I have read the descriptions of and whatnot. And it's then I'll dive into YouTube afterwards and be like, okay, yeah, I was way off, but that's also a cool backstory. So I'm used to it. I've played all the FromSoft games, so I knew what to expect, and I really, really, really enjoyed the Elden Ring story, despite the fact that I don't completely understand all of it. Tears of the Kingdom story, and can we get to I assume we're okay to get all the way into the in-game story stuff. Yeah. I thought what they did with Zelda was, can I cuss on this podcast?
Go ahead.
Fucking amazing.
Yeah.
I have always felt like Zelda has played that damsel in distress role in every Zelda game. This one, dude, she just takes it by the horns and leads the charge. Her decision to turn into the Eternal Dragon, when you see that one memory, and I know you know the one I'm talking about, where it clicks, that, oh my god, that light dragon is Zelda, and the Master Sword is up there. My mind exploded. Now, I had no idea at that time how she became the dragon, until then you see you swallow the sacred stone and you turn to the dragon. I thought that was so cool. She gave her life. She thought she was giving up her life to transport the Master Sword to Link in the only way that she saw possible. And I just, oh man, that just hit me hard.
I will say,
while Link still had his meth face,
he's just thanks, Zelda. I'm gonna go fuse a rock to this Master Sword that you've been. But I will say, many times in Zelda games, the Master Sword, when you get the Master Sword, it's a huge deal. Ocarina of Time, you get the Master Sword, you're transported into the future 7 years. Wind Waker, you get the Master Sword, Hyrule comes back to life. In Twilight Princess, you the Master Sword cures you of your wolf curse at that time, and then so on and so forth. Skyward Sword, you create the Master Sword. Breath of the Wild, you find it in the forest and all that. This Master Sword retrieval is the best in the entire series. The best Master Sword retrieval in the series' 37-year-long history, because it has emotion. It's more personal, It's a lot more personal, and I really like that. And many people, I don't know how active you were with the Zelda videos and watching a lot of Zelda theories pre Tears of the Kingdom, when it was just Breath of the Wild 2. Everyone was like, oh, playable Zelda, we want Zelda to be playable, we want Zelda to do combat and all that. I thought that would have been pretty cool, how Atreus was playable in God of War Ragnarok, but my big hope was just don't have her in the damsel in distress, don't have her put away to the side, an afterthought, how she kind of was in Breath of the Wild. And even in the last trailer we saw, like in April before the game came out, I was like, oh god, they're gonna do the damsel in distress thing. Like, I'm not like down for this. This is gonna be so boring. Like, I wanted Zelda to really shine in this game, and I was wrong. They really did, and she did a really good job. And her role in this game is arguably like the most significant out of all the characters. And I want to say one more thing about the story. This Link sucks. This Link sucks. Like, Shane was talking about it, like his facial expressions, his reactions to things, like, oh, Zelda's a dragon. He has the same reaction to all the other memories he saw, and I'm like, Link, come on.
I think the only expression he ever has is like when he sees the tear drop, for the memories, like, oh, that's it.
Right. Yeah, I liked Link in Breath of the Wild when you if you go into Zelda's bedroom chamber, you can find her diary. And I think in one of the entries it talks about how Link is like, he decides to be mute because he feels like a hero should,
it's
show off with his actions.
He carries. Yeah.
It's
the burden that he carries, and he has so much stress put on him that he's like, I want to like take this with like a solemn, silent vow, and like,
I thought that was really cool, and that gave me like mad respect for this Link. But I do agree. I feel like in all of the other games, he comes from such humble beginnings. Like in Twilight Princess, you're a farmer. In Wind Waker, you're just some kid like living, like you're just chilling on a beach coastal town, and suddenly something happens, and you're like, all right, I got to step up now, to go save my sister or whatever. In Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, I think it is cool that he was already an established knight. I think that is a cool backstory, but we never got to see any of it. I think it would have been like cool to see some more training. I think there's one memory in Breath of the Wild where you do see him doing some training with Zelda and the king are watching him or whatever.
And
but I would have liked to get a little more
Age of
backstory
Calamity, but Age of Calamity is whatever. It's
I don't even count Age.
Did you guys like the main villain overall? Like Ganondorf and his like role? I haven't played the previous ones. I really liked him, though I wish he was more active in the modern time. Like he just, I don't know, would screw with Link somehow, with either some way. But I really enjoyed his presence, and it was really fun leading up to that like final fight with him. So 100%. Do you guys like how he was done overall in this game, or do you think previous Zelda games, Dave, like he was just more scarier, or you were more excited, or he just had more of a presence?
I think well, it's hard to say, because I want to say traditional Zelda games, he's better, but he has multiple occurrences in those traditional Zelda games, which builds his character over time. Like his first appearance in Ocarina of Time, then in Twilight and in Wind Waker, it's all the same, obviously all the same Ganondorf, and he changes throughout those games. And like he talks about his beliefs in Wind Waker. He was like, back in the day, I was just a killer, but now I have more meaning to what I'm doing. And like his character does change, so it goes through an arc. Whereas in Tears of the Kingdom, this seems to be a resetting of the timeline. Essentially, this what we see of Ganondorf, this is his first time, going through Hyrule and meeting the king and stuff. And so I think he still has room to grow. I don't think this is the last we've seen of this Ganondorf. If the previous, Zelda games are anything to go off of, if this is a true resetting of the timelines, then he'll probably come back several times, and maybe he'll have like a full character arc by then. But I think this was a cool start. I do wish he made some more appearances in the modern time throughout the game. I really don't like in TV, movies, video games, whatever, when there's a big bad and you never really interact with them until the final boss fight. And I'm glad we get to see him in memories and stuff in Tears of the Kingdom, but his presence didn't feel totally felt until like you do get to finally fight him. But all in all, I thought Ganondorf was pretty badass, and his transformation was really cool.
I think giving him a voice in this game really added to his character.
I loved his voice.
Like, oh,
I think people looked like the amount of memes that people were like, "Oh man, he looks so hot" or whatever.
I love that as well, because like
his character design was spot on.
Oh
like,
yeah, it was fantastic, because I always wondered how will they do Ganondorf in this style of art, because we know how Link looks, we know how Zelda looks. How are they going to do Ganondorf? And
just make him hot and badass.
Exactly. Just
there you go.
Him jacked, buff, muscular, with a giant
He's a Chad. So there you go. He's Chad.
He's got the nice hair going as well. And I think they did. Yeah, what's up?
I was gonna say I remembered one part I loved about Ganondorf's character is when he got sealed by Rauru, and he was like, "This is gonna be like a blink of the eye for me. I can't wait to wake up and fight this Link guy that y'all are talking about so much. I'm gonna kick. Y'all are hyping him up for me. He's got some legendary sword. Whatever. I cannot wait to come out and just ruin this for you guys." I loved that like little interaction with him. I was like, "Damn, Ganondorf has some like oomph behind him, man. He's ready for this fight."
I also really liked the skeleton Ganondorf that was done as well, because he made an appearance at the beginning of the game, and you see him at the end, right before the final boss, but you also see him when you overtake, like when you go back to Hyrule Castle, you encounter Puppet Zelda, and then he comes back and he's actually talking to you and the sages. That was a really cool moment as well. So yeah. Any final things about the story? We can get close to wrapping up here, but any final things you guys want to say about anything, like combat, exploration, story, about Elden Ring? We talked so much about Tears of the Kingdom in this.
We did. It's fresher in the mind. It's fresher in the mind.
Yeah, and like we love both of these games, some more than the others. We think both of these games are great in their own way. To kind of like bring it all together, I think Elden Ring has really, really good RPG systems, really, really good combat and customization and progression with your character, the variety of builds, the variety of different combat styles, all that. Tears of the Kingdom, to me, I think has a more engaging and more fun world to explore because of its, like the things that are in the world, that get you to go from here to there and all that, and just some of the characters are fun to interact with, the side quests are fun to do. Elden Ring also has a great world, but I think also Tears of the Kingdom's verticality is one thing. So what are your guys' like conclusions, sum up, kind of final thoughts?
I would go combat, Elden Ring. It's also got, not that Tears of the Kingdom doesn't, but Elden Ring's replayability is like out the wazoo. So I go combat, Elden Ring, open world and exploration. I'd give to Elden Ring due to the variety, the sense of wonder and mystery, the fact that they don't have 1,000 Korok seeds to find, and story. I would give to Tears of the Kingdom. I think Tears. It's close, but I think Tears hit me harder, just like my general Zelda fandom. I'll give it to Tears.
Hey guys, my friend is over there.
My friend. Your Korok friend?
And I would say, for me, like, definitely combat is Elden Ring, 100%. The replayability, the builds, the enemy variety, the bosses, which is what I live for, just has to be Elden Ring. And exploration, I think is both great in like both games. I don't think there's like one that's like superiorly better, but I just love the verticality and just the creativity of Tears of the Kingdom's exploration, and I really enjoy that. Story, man, this is a tough one because it's tough because I love the story for Elden Ring was more like the community kind of like forged it, and like just the difficulty of the bosses and overcoming them was just so amazing. But I would say I definitely enjoyed them making us have like a surface level story within Tears of the Kingdom, so I can actually feel for the characters. So, and I hope, basically in conclusion, my thing is I hope that both of these games like learn from each other, like Elden Ring did from Breath of the Wild. I'm pretty sure Tears of the Kingdom also learned from Elden Ring in different ways too. But
I'm excited to see what the next FromSoftware game does with its world and its verticality. That's one thing.
I don't think they'll change their story presentation.
Oh
though.
no.
I don't think FromSoftware.
But I will say one real quick thing. You were saying, Lunatunes, which games have the similar kind of non-linear storytelling where you have to look into memories or look into logs or anything like that? Metroid Prime. And you also recently played that this year, Shane. All the scanning, like I still don't know the full extent of the story of Metroid Prime because I didn't scan everything, but when you do scan, you get a good idea of like, oh, this is what's happening here. Oh, this happened here. Oh, the Chozo did this, and the Chozo were here because of this. So that's another, like,
I want to throw in Deathloop, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe, but I didn't particularly like Deathloop story, so so that could be one of them. But it's obviously not as done as well as like Tears of the Kingdom or anything like that.
Yeah.
That's more for like you read the notes on the walls and everything.
Yeah. But yeah. I guess that about wraps things up. Thank you guys so much for joining. I want to hand it over to you guys one last time. Shout out any projects or things you guys are working on. Dylan, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So once again, you can find me at Lunatunes on YouTube and Lunatunes25 on Twitter. My most recent video was actually a retro review of Castlevania Symphony of the Night. It's my first time ever playing Symphony of the Night, my first time playing Castlevania in general. Had a lot of fun with that one, but it was like the last couple of videos I've done have been pretty edit heavy, so I'm kind of tired. So I think the next video I'm going to do is going to be nice and easy. I'm going to do a Zelda game tier list. We're going to rank all the Zelda games now that Tears of the Kingdom is wrapped up. So yeah, that should be fun. I don't know when it'll drop. Maybe I hope to get it done before this weekend. So we'll see. Take a peep at the channel, and once again, Nish, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I'm also curious to potentially maybe hear your thoughts on Metal Gear Solid 3. As someone who's played 1 and 2 but not played 3, I'm excited to play it in October when the Master Collection comes out, and I'm curious to maybe hear your thoughts on that as well.
Sure, I do. I can give you a very quick cliff notes. It is, this is my first ever like Metal Gear game. I'm only playing this one first because it's like first in the timeline.
It's a good place to start.
It was so hard for me to get into and learn all the systems. I had no idea what was going on, but now that I've got a foothold, it's really, really good. And the music, the theme song of Snake Eater is phenomenal as well.
Yeah. Shane, you want to shout out anything or promote anything you're working on?
I'm not working on anything currently right now, but hopefully one day I soon will be.
Yes, yeah.
Starting something.
Whenever Shane starts his YouTube channel, I'll put it back down in the description here. And Shane was also on some other episodes of the EXP podcast, so you guys can check those out. I'll have those linked in the description. We talked about like game hardware versus like lower end hardware. Like it was basically like Steam Deck versus Switch and what we want from the next Switch. We talked about that like late last year. We also
themes.
What?
Themes.
Yes, themes. We want themes back.
And folders.
Yes. Not just the groups that we got on the Switch, which are really silly and lame. And then we also did a God of War Ragnarok spoiler talk with some other friends, so that was fun. We'll have that in description. And for me, I have a bunch of stuff on deck, which I'm working on. I'll get it all out eventually, but also we are close to 1K, so if you guys enjoyed this video, give it a like, subscribe to me, as well as Lunatunes and Shane whenever I drop his channel down below. Thank you guys so much for joining. It was a really fun chat. I knew I had to do it with you two specifically for this topic, for this specific episode, and yeah, it was a great talk.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us, man.
No problem. Yeah, this is Nishquick, Shane, and Lunatunes signing off. Have a great day. Go play some great games today, like Elden Ring and Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. I'll see you guys in the next one. Later.
Peace.
Later.